All right, friends and listeners, today's episode is with my good friend Kathryn McCarron. She is a San Francisco-based fashion designer and founder of her namesake ethical cashmere line that is featured in stores from Bergdorf Goodman to Neiman Marcus to Lord & Taylor, from New York to Korea. We talk about everything from being featured in New York Fashion Week at age 25 to the cover of Cosmo magazine. She is just as humble as she is amazing, and I'm really excited to have the honor to chat with her today. You can go to KathrynMcCarron.com or check her out on Instagram to check out her work and see the above-the-line version, and you can sit right there to hear the other side. This is Below the Line. Live. K-Mac?
Hello.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We got some Can Euphorics in the house. Euphorics for humanity. No, humankind. Sorry, the bottle was a little bigger. Then, humankind. What do you think about this kin?
I'm into it. It's flowery. Kind of tastes like red wine without the alcohol.
Yeah, it's a very interesting taste.
Yeah.
And I've had it on the podcast before. It's a friend's company out of New York, Kin, K-I-N.
Okay.
And it's kind of makes you feel a little tingly.
It does. I feel euphoric.
Yeah, we've been drinking it for the last few minutes, and it really does.
No alcohol.
No, there's no alcohol in it. So you can drive.
I can drive.
You can put this in a water bottle and just cruise.
Cool.
Cruise with it. All right, K-Mac, thank you so much for coming on Below the Line.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to get going.
Well, we've been friends for a few years, so it's really fun to have friends on here, especially one as accomplished and badass as yourself. And it is, we're about to get into it, but real quick, you were mentioning that you just went through the David Goggins book. Who's David Goggins for listeners?
Yeah, David Goggins is arguably like the baddest ass on earth. Like really legit. Like, I think a lot of people kind of know who he is right now, but maybe that's just in my group. So, he's an ultramarathon man, which means that, he's run like 100 miles races and even won 200-mile race, which is just insane. Yeah. He's a Navy SEAL, and like just so many accolades that are he has the World Guinness Book of Records for pull-ups, like 4,300 pull-ups or something in a day. He's a maniac, and he's actually from Indiana, which I'm from Indiana. So it feels cool. He's really, really inspiring and really intense. But his book is really, really amazing.
Yeah, my wife is reading it right now as well, listening to the audiobook, and I've heard that it's a really cool audiobook because there's a narration, but then there's kind of an interview, almost podcast mixed in with the audiobook.
Totally. Actually, Cheney, your wife, was the one who encouraged me to get the audiobook. I was going to get just the book. And she was like, no, you should get the audiobook. So anyway, and I whipped through it. I'm training for a marathon.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah. So I whipped through it in like 3 or 4 days. It's like 14 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's so long, but it's really cool. It is similar to this. It is like this guy, Adam, jumps back on and he's the narrator, it's not called the narrator, the guy who reads the book, I guess. And then he also interviews him, and David Goggins tells some really, really real stories that just are really below the line.
Yeah. He lives below the line.
He lives below the line.
I've seen some interviews. I haven't read the book, but I've seen some interviews online, and that guy is he is the kind of hero we need right now.
Yeah.
He could make every excuse in the book and refuses to, and just the life that he has built for himself. Nothing was handed his way.
No.
And every step of the way could have just said, it's something, it was pushing back a wave. And he's like, no, I'm going to push back on a wave. I don't care what it is.
Every time. Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you took from the book that you really, from his story? Because I've only seen a few long form interviews, like on podcasts. I've only
Joe
seen
Rogan, he does a bunch on that. No, you should read the book. I mean, you should listen to the audiobook. You'll really love it. He's just, I was mentioning one before about the cookie jar. Well, he has two things that I really like, but I mean, so many things. He's just such a pusher. Like, I'll be running like 10 miles and I'll be like, oh God, like, I'll get perspective because I'm like, here he is telling me he's, on mile 98, like I can do this. Like he's not, like this God. He's just a human being, and he's like kind of carving the way for everyone to do it. So it kind of gave me motivation to run my 10 miles or whatever. But anyway, there's this thing called the cookie jar, and it's like a jar filled with cookies, which are your like accomplishments, like something you're really proud of. And every time you're really, really proud of something that, whether it's like quitting smoking or like not eating that cookie that you really, really wanted, or something silly, or like something really big, you put like this like imaginary cookie in the cookie jar. And then when you do have to do something that you don't want to do that's super challenging, you pull out one cookie and say, look, I did this, so I can do the next thing.
Cool. Yeah. It's a good visualization. Yeah, get some more of that, Ken. I only poured a little bit because I didn't know if you were going to like it. You were mentioning, and I think he ran like, I think I remember hearing he ran 8 ultra marathons, like back-to-back weeks in a row or something. Like it just,
he's incredibly impressive. Like he was like, he ran 100 miles before he even ran a marathon.
Yeah.
And then,
and he we'll let listeners just go listen to the audiobook or buy the book in a sec. But I remember kind of thinking like, oh, well, how impressive can this impressive guy be? And it's just, I think he also had like, I could be wrong on this, but sickle cell anemia or something.
Yep, he did. I mean, he had the trait.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't have it, but he had like, I don't know exactly what.
So like and something else, I can't remember, some other health.
Oh, he had a hole in his heart. Yeah.
So like there was nothing like, special about, there's no privileged place in which he was. Yeah.
He was 300 pounds, like from Indiana, like just like, nothing, not from like Beverly Hills or not like, no, nothing was handed to him. And he just accomplished so much. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna listen to the audiobook now.
Love it.
So have you had to go to that kind of mental place with the cookie jar in your running or training for the marathon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not naturally an athlete, and I want to run it at a good pace as well. I don't want to just.
What is a good? I've never run a marathon.
Man, now you're putting me on the spot, but I have to say it now because But I do want to run it under 4 hours, which is good, which is less than a 9-minute mile throughout.
Wow.
So it's definitely not elite or anything like that, but it's an accomplished time. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I'm just saying it now. And, if it doesn't happen, that's fine. But so I really do have to go to the cookie jar for a lot of this because my brother and sister are actually naturally athletic. They won state championships for swimming and everything like that. And I was always kind of, the swimmer that they clapped, because like I was the last one. They were like, yay, she's cute. So I do have to pull from some things, and it's not an athletic pull that I have to pull from. It's something in my career. And it was, I got the opportunity to compete for New York Fashion Week in school early on. It's this giant competition that, like New York Fashion Week, I'm sure listeners know, but if you don't, like, it's like one of the biggest things you can do in fashion. You know, Marc Jacobs shows, like Ralph Lauren, like Donna Karan, like all the greats. And it's just such a...
And how old were you when you got to show?
Well, I was competing at like 22, and I won. I got to show at 25.
Wow. Okay, 25. What was going through your head when that happened? Was it just super surreal?
Oh my God. I mean, it was an uphill battle to even get in. Like not only like talent wise, but like in my own brain, like, am I good enough? Sort of like drama going on in there, you know? I was from Indiana and I didn't have any connections in fashion, and I was the underdog at school and blah, blah, blah. And, but anyway, I fought really.
That blah, blah, blah is that's the below the line version that is so easily pushed aside in storytelling. But tell me a little bit more about, okay, so grew up in Indiana.
Sure.
And leading up to, years or your whole life to this New York Fashion Week, but what got you interested in fashion?
Okay, sure. I mean, I was born like 20 minutes outside Chicago, so not like really like deep Indiana, but definitely Midwest. And I love where I'm from and everything. But there's not like a huge like fashion community, and I didn't know anybody. But I was a shopper. I was really a shopper, and it's a really different thing than being a designer, which I didn't think it was when I first started design school. I thought, I have Louis Vuittons and I have, Gucci glasses, and I could definitely design a collection. But my ass got handed to me, when I actually tried to attempt that, and my teachers were pretty brutal and relentless with humiliating me in front of class.
Really?
Yeah. And
too much so?
Looking back, no. I think it was an okay amount, but it was pretty brutal. And there were a couple teachers that those people that they feel they can tell you what you're supposed to do in life. And they say, don't do it, take a step back. I think those are the worst type of people. Like, you can't do it. Not you're bad, keep going, but drop out.
Really?
Yeah, so I had a couple of those. That.
How would they say it? Just like that?
Drop out. You're not good enough. Like, you shouldn't be a designer.
Walk me through like the specifics of one of those conversations that you remember.
Yeah, I was probably like, so my first year, I was definitely the underdog. It was graduate school, so I was 22, and a lot of my classmates had gone to undergrad in design school, so they already knew what they were doing. I kind of got in, what do you say, like on a hope and a prayer, like a handshake. I like slid into the program and kind of begged my way in. I got in, but that was as far as that got me. And we all had these reviews, and we would show our collection.
And where was it? Where was this grad school?
Oh, in San Francisco at the Academy of Art.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it was a great school.
It is a great school. And the director, Simon Ungles, is one of my mentors, like, to this day, and I'm so thankful for him. So he's actually the one who made the decision to have me be in Fashion Week. So, but early on, I was like 22, and we would all have to present these projects or whatever. And, mine just looked like silly. They were just silly because like I said, I shopped a lot, and I definitely knew fashion. I definitely knew all the designers and everything like that. But did I know how to like put it together in a cohesive collection? Like, no. That's why a lot of people who look really good, in the world, who try to make a fashion line, sometimes don't succeed, because it's a whole thing where you have to train, You can't just like fashion and make a line. Yeah. So yeah, it would get to me, and I would, there were really talented people in my classes, like really, really, either like amazing illustrators. And I was definitely the youngest one, like hypothetically, yes, you can start grad school at 22, but like most people started at like minimum 25, and there were some 30 somethings in there. So I was like the youngest one and like the worst one, there was like maybe me and like one other, but like,
how do you judge good and bad in that kind of academic sense of fashion?
Yeah, it's like, it has to be cohesive. Like the line has to look like thought out, like the same color story, the same type of fabrics. Like it has to look like the same girl is shopping it. It has to read. You can't just be like, okay, here's like a denim jacket, here's some leather pants, here's a t-shirt, I'm fashion. Like, sure, that can work for a season, but then you're not like going to have longevity. It needs to like make sense as like seasons. Like people need to understand like what Kathryn McCarron is, like what, like long term, what the line looks like is your goal, and you want maybe the girl is 18 when you start, and she ages with you, and then her daughter shops it and stuff like that. It's a whole like science actually behind like designing a line that I just was foolish and didn't respect. And I just thought, oh, I know fashion, I can do this. And so it became really clear within that first year that I did not know, and I needed to learn quickly to at least get up to everyone else's level. And on top of that, not only designing, we had to sew everything. We had to pattern make. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know how to pattern make. I didn't know how to sew. I didn't know anything. So, I had an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long is grad school for fashion design?
Yeah, it was 3 years.
And by the third year, you were in New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was the progression? What kind of groove did you feel like you hit, or where did you feel like you hit a groove in those 3 years? Or did you always feel like,
Oh no, I did.
You did? Awesome.
Yeah,
and then what was that? Describe that groove.
Yeah. There's actually this point called midpoint, which is just how it sounds. It's the middle of the program, and they assess if you're actually even going to graduate, actually going to even like if you're good enough to even get your degree, and second, if you can compete for a fashion week, and I showed, and it was this panel of professionals, like really established, like Simon Ungles was one of them, who worked with Alexander McQueen really early on, and he's just incredible, and there were some other really esteemed judges that were part of the judging process, and I went up there and I showed everything, and they looked at it, and then they had me go out for like 20 minutes, and then I came back in and they said, you shouldn't compete for Fashion Week. You should just work on your portfolio and get a normal job. That's your best bet. And I was like, I was like 23, and I cried, I was super green. And I was like, and that was like my kind of wake up. And I knew that it was true, because they were really, I couldn't rationalize in my head that there was this subjective judging, maybe because they were like not established people or whatever. They actually were all legit, especially Simon, and he knew what was up. And so I had to just take that pill and be like, I'm not good enough yet. And then I came back and did that again. And I was like much more hardened by that point. I was like, going to school from like 8:30 in the morning till 12:30 at night every day. I got a tutor. Like I was became really psycho, really. I was like, oh, really? You don't think I can do it? I can do it. I got really like, I was pissed. And then I came back and I said, I know that I'm not going to show in New York Fashion Week, but I just wanted to show you what I've been working on, my portfolio, just to show that I can pass the program. And then they put me out again for 20 minutes, came back in, and they said, I actually think you should compete.
What does put you out? What do you, just while they chatted about it?
Yeah, sorry. Like they put me out of the room and they had like a private conversation.
Did you think, oh, wait, this could go well? Or were you just,
No.
that was not even in your...
I was like cold-hearted by then. I was like, I didn't want to like get my heart broke again. So I was just like, I'm not going to get it. And then when they said you should compete, it was on. And then I like legit really put in the work, and I just never left school. And I hung out with only the Koreans. They like stayed the longest. My best friend at the time, Min Sun, went to like the equivalent of Harvard. It's called Seoul University. And like I couldn't even keep up, but I tried. They would be there till like 1:30 in the morning when school closed every day. And that's how I got in.
For how long?
For like almost a year. Yeah.
Where do you think you would have been at 26, 27 if you didn't have that experience at that midpoint? What if you'd been doing well and there was no kind of midpoint conversation, that an inflection point?
Yeah, I think it was good for me. I got my ass kicked, I was humbled and I knew like, it's not easy. I have to fight for it. I have to like train for it in a way,
Yeah.
Nothing was easy for me. I don't think for anyone, but
right. Well, and that's something we've chatted about before is founders in very different realms, but tech or fashion. But it's something we've chatted before about. And you mentioned something, I remember you mentioning something about more heart than capability, and another founder that really, what was the story about that, and kind of, it's one of the questions I want to ask is what's something you think a lot about, but you rarely get a chance to talk about. And on this question, you had mentioned to me before about luck and in your view of it. Do you mind telling me about it?
Yeah. So the first part you asked me was the founder that it's Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. And it was like I follow her Instagram and she's super inspiring. And she posted this photo of herself when she was a kid, and it was like this silly like participation award or something. And she was like, "Oh God, I was so embarrassing. I didn't get like a first, second, or third, or even fourth ribbon. I got the participation, like, and I can relate to that because, as I was saying before, as like an athlete, I would always get like the 6th place ribbon, which is like, what is that? It's like, I think it was like sometimes last place, but I got a ribbon, and I was like, anyway. And so she said at the post, she said, she always had more heart than capability, and she wore that as a badge of honor. And I love that. I think it's really honest, and it just means that she doesn't have this like God gift, this gift from God that was like incredible. She just fought really hard, and she had a lot of heart. Yeah. And then you asked me also about luck, and I don't believe in luck. I think that you make your own luck.
Tell me more.
Yeah. I think that so I follow like all these people, I get as much help as I can from self-help books or mentors or whatever.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm
and me
not,
both, yeah.
I'm not above it. Anything that you can give me, like, please send me my way, and I'll give it you gave me this book, and I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to read it, because anything that somebody suggests, like, that can help me be a better version of myself, I'm all for.
Yeah.
So
same here.
yeah. So Kevin Hart, said like, the comedian Kevin Hart. Yeah.
He is brilliant dude.
Yeah. And I read his book too.
Oh yeah.
It's really good. You should read that one.
Awesome. I love non-business books. And I really should read more of these. I also love nonfiction, probably too much, but yeah, like the David Goggins story, I feel like I would learn more from that story than just the founder of X company, because I feel like I've read those stories. And,
right.
But yeah, okay. So what about the Kevin Hart book that was special for?
Yeah. So they were like, oh my God, Kevin Hart, you're like an overnight success, like, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, an overnight success of 10 years in the making, And so there's always like this glorified story that once you reach some level of success, or you have this accolade, or you've accomplished something, that everyone's like thinks that was always you, or but that's not true. That person was built over time through successes and failures. Through failures, a lot of failures.
Oh, I bet anyone that went to New York Fashion Week while you're showing was probably thinking, this person, everyone here must have had flawless trajectories.
Right.
And not knowing, the story beneath it all was
the worst. I was like the worst student who started, and that's like actually not a lie. I was. And then I hid it how good I was for a while, because I cherished it so much. Once I actually built it, I didn't want it to be taken away or something silly, whatever. And so Carl, who was my boyfriend, who's not my husband.
Of course, I know Carl.
Of course, you know Carl
Carl's
really well.
The man.
Yeah, but he never saw even one design of mine until he watched it walk down the runway in New York.
Really?
Yeah.
How long had y'all been dating?
Oh, like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, that was weird.
Why do you think?
I guess I just protected it. I guess I was just like, I was afraid it wasn't real or something until I was, like when you asked me my time for the marathon, the old me would have been like, I'm not going to tell, because I would be afraid to fail and not meet that time. But now it's like, hey, if I don't make the time, I'm not afraid to fail anymore. Yeah. Well, I am, I guess, a little, but not at all how I used to be.
Really?
No.
Like, walk me through. Okay, so that story is you wouldn't even show your boyfriend at the time.
No.
Any of your designs.
Mm-mm.
Until you showed the world.
Exactly.
At the most prestigious event for your industry.
Right.
And now, tell me how your mindset has changed over time, over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. I think actually it's a lot of my self-talk has changed. Actually, I know a lot of my self-talk. I was like meaner to myself in my 20s. I was like, I didn't enjoy even any accomplishment. I was just always so hard on myself. Nothing was good enough. And I won a lot of things because of that. But like, I didn't enjoy them. I didn't like feel good when I got them,
Totally know.
Yeah.
And you can get things through maladaptive ways and think, okay, that's why I got them.
Yeah.
I'm so scared of losing these things, these targets that I keep setting for myself.
Right.
So I better keep doing what I've been doing.
Right. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to sound like a crazy person, because it's all I do is like read these people. But I also was reading Michelle Obama's memoir. And
that's the point of this podcast, by the way, is I think we get so much inspiration from others that are maybe a little further in their journey, or they're right there with you.
Right.
And it just feels like, okay, that's some relief because I'm not alone and thinking this thing. That is why I started this podcast, was because I would have these conversations through immense low points that were so helpful. Right. And I would think, why am I only hearing this now?
Right.
Like I spent the last 3 weeks feeling like I was alone until I had this conversation over drinks where someone's telling me the real version of their journey.
Right.
And it is, I mean, it's, a psychologist was telling me recently that when someone's going through pain, during it, it's almost impossible for them to truly deal with it. It needs to be afterwards that they deal with it. But the one way that you can help them is for them to not feel like they're alone. So
right.
yeah, I'm consuming these things about other people, biographies, right. Left and right.
Right.
Because it is. So, okay. So I want to hear about all of your influences from Kevin Hart to Michelle Obama.
Okay. Yeah. So Michelle Obama, her book is called Becoming, and it's essentially how she became Michelle Obama, how Obama became president. It's a two-part, it's a two-person business, I guess, becoming president. It's not just Obama. It's his wife also standing by his side. They did it together, as you and Cheney and as me and Carl, it's the two people always fighting together.
Right.
And whatever. And so,
I'm going to have an episode with spouses soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
Spouses of founders or spouses of creators. Yeah.
Yeah. And Carl is he also is a co-founder with me, and he's funded it for a long time. So he really deserves, some sort of award or home cooked meal or something.
Yeah.
But, so Michelle Obama said, back in her, when her self-talk was not very healthy, she would say, why me? Why me? Why me? Like, why could I, get first place? Why could I do this? And, and she was very much like how I was. Like, she almost abused herself in order to win. And then eventually she started saying, well, why not me? And I that kind of happened to me, and it's like, why not? Why not me over anyone else? And, and same for a stranger. Why not them over not them? It's just as easy to ask that question than to say, oh, I can't do it. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Why can't you do it?
When did you start to shift that self-talk?
Maybe in my 30s, to be honest.
What do you think about your life that was going on that helped shift that perspective?
Well, the big one was when my nephew, which we'll talk about, I guess, later or whatever. But, a couple big things happened. It's not I mentioned before, but it's not a marathon, it's a sprint. So many things lead up to who you become, I guess, over time. But one that shaped me, my nephew, we unfortunately share a similar experience, life event, whatever, that my nephew took his life. My nephew David, he was 17, a little over a year ago. And he suffered from depression and anxiety, and it was a terrible time, as you know. And I'll never expect to know it to the extent that you know it. I have 1 degree of separation, but it is heavy.
There's no comparisons. It is. If you've been through it with someone you care about, then you've been through it. Yeah,
exactly. And it is a taboo subject. There's no guidebook to on how to deal with it, and you literally just have to walk through the fire of hell in order to get out on the other side. And I think because he suffered so greatly, I made it a point to stop that cycle in any capacity, in my own head, or so my daughter wouldn't have to see it, or so my husband wouldn't have to see it. And I think we all are guilty of a bit of talking bad about ourselves in our own head. But at that point, I was just kind of to honor him, I'm gonna end that in my own life.
Wow. Where do you think that you learned it anywhere growing up? Do you think it's just human nature?
I do think it's a bit human nature. I do. I also think it's a bit, if you grew up in a competitive environment, I really want to teach my daughter. I know she's going to be competitive. She's already competitive. Me and Carl are competitive, you know, so I know it, but I want to teach her how to channel that in a healthy way, not to beat herself up, you know, if she loses, or, you know, I used to beat myself up, and that would be how I would win. And I think that...
Where do you think you learned that? Or I guess, like you said, maybe it's human nature, but you said that you don't want your daughter to feel that as, you know, intimating that you can influence it. Was it just Indiana? Was it school that you went to?
I don't know. I think I was born like that. I don't know. I don't know, because I
asked because the school that I went to was hyper competitive.
Oh.
Very competitive.
Okay. I mean, you know, I mentioned swimming. Mm-hmm. So the swimming community where I'm from, like, there's a couple people who went to the Olympics and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it is a very competitive, like, so I was around that a lot. So maybe that's what it did. Yeah. It was pretty brutal. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And so, in your 30s, you said that you wanted to stop that. Yeah. Tell me, what would be an example where you would have this critical self-talk before and now you started to move away from it?
Yeah. I was like more afraid to be a loser before, that I would do everything in my power to not be a loser, you know? And now it's like, it's the same thing, but I will do everything in my power to be a winner.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I just want to be a better version of myself. I don't want to beat other people. I just want to be a better version of myself.
Yeah. I think it is, for my own experiences, it is, I went through and I remember reading this a few years ago that this was like, you know, very natural path for humans. But Carl Jung, a psychologist from the probably top 2-3 most influential psychologists of the 20th century, had this viewpoint of called individuation, that up until from like 6 to 30, I may have mentioned this on the podcast before, but up until you're 30, you were wanting to belong, and belonging by fitting in, which isn't real, you know, belonging, but you want to belong. And so you want to look the part of the community.
Okay.
And from 30 on, you go through this process of individuation of you want to belong by specializing in something through individualizing who you are, rather than being part of the collective, because you look the same, you look the part, you say the same things. Instead, it's okay, the way that I actually now see that I will belong, it will be through my own individual specialization of what I bring to the community. And I know that I feel like I went through something like that, where it was I want to belong by being a version that people say is really useful, say is, you know, it basically was fit into that mold. And then in the 30s stopped caring, and feel like I thought it was because, like, I, you know, just touched the hot stove, and I, you know, it's through my experience, but maybe it's just so many of us go through that same path, and you get to a certain point where you actually, you know, you create, or you become who you are actually supposed to become, that is, you know, different than what's in people's minds that you're trying to fit in.
Yeah.
Okay, enough about little old C.G. Jung. So the you know, in that individuation, or kind of in that path of that positive self-talk, is that where something like the cookie jar comes in, where it's like, okay, that type of self-talk is like, that's what gets you through really tough times. I know that you just read the book, but that sounds phenomenally powerful.
It's
like so
useful.
simple, but
it's very useful. It's very, yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, we've all had, you know, as founders, accomplishments that we're proud of. We've also had a lot of failures, you know, but we have a couple that we can cling to. So
yeah, what are some of the cookies in the jar? You mentioned New York Fashion Week. What are some of the others that
yeah,
you think about?
definitely when you know, it was a hustle for a long time trying to get any stores. Like nobody would take me, knew who I was. And I would like fly to New York and I would get this really like pimp hotel room and I would invite all of these stores and I would like pay the maids like extra money to make it super clean, get champagne, flowers. All these people would be on the agenda and nobody would show, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was the worst. And then, you know, the next season I came back, did the same thing. Nobody showed except Saks. And then the next season, I came back and I went to Saks and I met with WWD, which is like essentially Vogue. It's like our fashion newsletter, like newspaper. It's like New York Times or like you know, it's it's the fashion one. And then finally Carl, you know, seeing all of this, I was like, okay, we have to like actually do a show. We have to do a legit show. And so we did this like trade show and Carl came on board and it helped a lot. You know, it was just me before because we could only afford just me because we're self-funded, you know. And then he came and we brought a crew, we brought a model, we brought my assistant and we all flew. We spent a bunch of money and we all flew there and got hotel rooms. And then
for listeners, Carl is this amazing artist and illustrator. If you've seen there's the Kong movie,
yeah,
like
King Kong,
then you've seen
Park.
Jurassic Park, then you've seen his work.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal illustrator. Oh,
Yeah,
really cool dude too.
Yeah,
very
he's
cool.
a cool dude.
Okay,
he's
so
a cool one.
You have Carl coming with you in this.
So
this time.
I think he might have gotten like pissed because it was like so much defeat, and it was like, and I'm strong. I'm definitely strong, but it was like almost too much for him to bear, I think. And he was like, "Come on!" Like, and I would get like little small things, and then just like devastated. You know.
And what year is this?
This is gosh, when did I really get this? I think I got the stores like a lot in like 2013. So this was like 2012. And so then he was like, okay, let's go. We're going to do this trade show. And then I got like Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf's, Revolve, which is like the biggest online. They're basically like Saks. And I got like, you know, all these stores in Asia, Japan. It all kind of came at once. It was like kind of like the payoff. And that's another cookie. That's a good one. You know, I was like, hell yeah, finally I got all of these stores, you know, that were, you know, so difficult for me to get the prior years.
And how long did it take in years to get to that point?
Probably
from like the New York Fashion Show,
Oh,
which I imagine
yeah.
you probably thought, okay, it's all happening.
Oh,
It's all going to just be downhill from here.
I woke up after New York Fashion Week to like so much press. Like I was getting phone calls like, oh my God, go to get Daily News and WWD and style.com. And I was in all this press, like next to Ralph Lauren. And I was like, oh my God, you know? And so I was like, oh, I made it. This is it.
And what year was that?
Oh, this was like a million years ago. This was like, what year? Like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This was like 10 years ago.
2009. And then it was another 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What was...
No, more than 10 years ago. It was like 2006.
Oh, wow.
And then like I moved to New York and worked for other designers, and it was a whole other like chapter in my life. And then I started my company in 2010 and grind it for like, you know, longer and everything, but like really like 3 full years of like almost nothing, you know? I mean, so many things happened. I built up contacts and everything like that, but I didn't see money and I didn't see stores. I didn't see anything come to life until a couple years in.
Right. Yeah. I brings up this quote. I love this. There's a quote from a basketball coach, Greg Popovich from the San Antonio Spurs, that he talks about pounding the rock, and to split a rock open, it requires 1,000 swings of the hammer, and it's on the 1,000th swing that the rock splits open, but it required all 999 before it to actually produce that moment in time. And it is, you see that moment, or you see that moment for someone else, and you, like the Kevin Hart story, you think it is overnight, or you think it's that swing of the hammer. And yeah, I tell for some reason I zero in on this thing of like with entrepreneurs, that it's like 16 months before you see that graph start to curve.
Right.
And I don't know why. It's almost like, because I think in my head, I mean, it was similar to our experience, but I've seen people get 7, 8, 9 months, 10, 11 months, 12 months in and feel like,
quit?
and quit. And it's, it oftentimes is just a recalibration of your expectations.
Right.
And one of the worst things you can do is have these expectations that it's going to be 90 days from now, you know, 5-6 months from now.
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things, 16 months or even 3 years to live out your dream is nothing.
Yeah.
But if you think it's going to be, 4 months from now, and that drags on month after month for 3 years, it's, that recalibration of, and I hope through this podcast and through conversations, I can become much more intelligent on how to recalibrate those expectations for friends and friends' companies. But I just throw out that 16-month thing because it's not too long. It's not, but it's certainly not, you won't see results of something special 6, 7, 8 months in.
No, and within the 16 months, actually things were definitely happening. I had gotten into my first store was in Hayes Valley in San Francisco. It was a really sought after store called Dish. So I got that, and I got a couple of things. I definitely had some stores, and Refinery 29 was writing me up and stuff. But the big one that I really wanted was the Neiman's and Revolve and Lord and Taylor and Bergdorf and all that. That came about 3 years in.
And when did you think it was going to come, or when? Maybe
right away. Maybe right away. I didn't think it would be that difficult. I thought if I was good enough, which I thought I was, I thought my designs were great. That sounds really too cocky. But it's
not at all.
It's I've been doing it a really long time, and it's something I'm comfortable with. I have a lot of things I'm not, but I was comfortable that I could design, and that I could design a collection. And I knew I was putting out good work. If it wasn't good, I would have cut it. So I was confident with what I was showing, and I thought that would be good enough, and it wasn't. There's so many other steps that you need to nail in order to everything to line up.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about is, you have told me before you're a founder, and your husband Carl can be a part of a larger company, but you would just hate it. And and you're totally spot on. Same way.
Yeah. I don't flourish in corporate America. I don't.
How come?
I don't know. I just come across way worse than I am. Because my skill set is to, as founders, and having our own company, we can do what we want. We can push boundaries. You're only supposed to be, at least in my experience, I can't speak for everyone else, because there's amazing corporate jobs. Obviously, Carl has a great one at Lucasfilm, but mine personally, that I was in New York, I worked in New York, and I took on some freelance gigs other places. I was just like a cog in a wheel, and I wasn't, even if I was driving it, even if I was a consultant, on the director or whatever, still I had to answer to people that didn't necessarily know what was right.
Yeah.
I know that
No, I know.
sounds
It's like a
awful.
delicate.
Yeah.
It's so, you're just pushed to be so diplomatic in that.
Yes.
And I think in my own experience, you're also just wondering, okay, but self-awareness. Maybe I'm just completely unself-aware, or, I'm way overconfident, but,
Right.
but there's probably some middle ground. That is the truth.
A sweet spot.
Yeah. And it's
Never worked for me though.
Yeah.
Ever.
And do you think, so you feel kind of like you need to be cage free?
Yeah, I do. I think that certain people are just like that. I feel like I'm kicking in a cage or something when I really, really love working for myself. I love being my own boss. I flourish, I really do. It's what I'm supposed to do. My friend Imran, who's also a founder, you should interview him. He's awesome. He when I got on the cover of Cosmo, him and his wife gave me this like beautiful crystal, and this they wrote in the card, "What you are seeking is also seeking you," and it was Rumi. And I really believe
that's the second time Rumi's come up in the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
In the first few episodes, yeah.
Okay.
Rumi's a man.
Yeah, seriously.
OG.
Yeah. So I feel like that. I feel like it's natural what I'm doing. It's like what I'm actually supposed to do. And I feel like if I'm working for corporate, it just doesn't fit me.
Have you experienced, like, growing up, were you ever kind of in a cage? Did you ever feel like you were?
Well, it was good. It was good and bad because I had an older brother who was very protective, and my parents kind of like had him protect me, which was great, I could do a lot. I could get away with a lot. Like, nobody would mess with me. His best friend was a professional fighter. Like, he ended up going to the UFC. Mm-hmm. Stefan Bonner. He was like really a big player in it.
That's a world I don't know, but
yeah.
Okay.
If any listeners are into UFC, they probably know Stefan Bonner. But anyway, that was his best friend. And so I could get away with a lot, and I could like kind of run my mouth and do that kind of thing.
You felt safe.
Yeah, for sure. And like guys wouldn't mess with me. I mean, to a fault, nobody would ask me out, which was like the word. Like, no boyfriends. But I also like, I wanted to like do what I wanted, be free, and like, and I guess that, I was a little overprotected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your parents help you feel? I think that's actually a really interesting observation of. I also, like, I could not wait to get out of high school, out of college. Same. Like, I literally, when we graduated, I went straight from the ceremony, packed my car, and started driving the 17 hours home, and everybody was staying to party. And then 6 days later, I was on a flight to South Africa, where my first job. I could not wait to leave, and I and my friends to this day from college, remember, they bring that up. But I always could not wait. But I think it's maybe a part of it is like, I need to live that cage-free life. But maybe part of it was also, I was so supported. I felt so safe. And you're talking about your brother protecting you.
Right.
I think I felt so safe. I had 3 older brothers that were very supportive. I had 2 parents that were really supportive.
Right. Same.
And I think, for a long time, I thought I was doing these things myself. But every day I feel like I'm reflecting, especially being a parent, just reflecting more on all of this just staircases and staircases of love and support I was getting without even knowing it. And it is that's an interesting observation. You immediately felt or reflected on being protected. And
it was all nice. It was like so nice, it was like what, I just, like you said, I couldn't wait to just be like free and to just do whatever I felt like doing. Like, I was so stoked. And then I picked a partner, and I think you did too, who allows you that freedom in a really beautiful, amazing way. You know, Carl lets me kind of do as I please. I mean, you know, I don't do anything crazy or bad or anything, but he doesn't like, I don't know. I don't know what normal wives do. Like they're expected home a certain time. I don't know, but
No,
you know what I mean?
Cheney is so supportive. Yeah.
Cheney is the best. Yeah.
It's, and I guess it's probably give and pull because I crave that freedom so much that I think the people that love me also, you know, want to provide that.
Right.
And I handle it responsibly. Yes, stick by them, and you handle it responsibly. But it's certainly probably more to do with that support system than just a strident, approach to life. You really do. I really actually, as you talked about it, think about, I didn't have protective older brothers. Actually, my older brothers let me get beat up, and they were doing a lot of the beating up, but I did feel really safe to go out and explore. Right. And yeah, that's interesting.
And there's a whole big world. And I think for certain people, like you said, you went to South Africa, and I spent some time in Greece, and then I went to Honduras on this mission when I was in college. And and then when I was 17, I went to Cancun, like by myself. My mom was like, oh, everyone was going on this huge like spring break when they were 16 to Myrtle Beach, but my mom didn't let me go, and I was so bummed. I was like, the whole class is going. And she was like, well, if you raise enough money next year, you can go. And I was like, cool. And then I like became a telemarketer at like 17. Really? Yeah. Because it was like the highest paid job I could get at the time. It was like $20 something an hour. And I raised like, $1,500, which was so much at that time. And then I went to Cancun, and I was like, yes, like this is where I'm supposed to be. It felt so freeing and like amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's just like my spirit. Yeah. And I feel like you're very, very similar, of course.
Yeah.
And I just want to give a below the line little blurb about being on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's
it's
my first time, first of all.
On a podcast?
Yeah.
Really?
Totally. And I just started
crushing it.
Well, thanks. No, you're a fantastic interviewer and making me feel very comfortable.
No, I'm literally learning on the go.
Yeah, but you're making it really easy for me, and it does feel like just a conversation. I was really nervous. I'm like just totally going to be honest. I'm like, it's one of my challenges that I'm trying to overcome public speaking, even though this isn't public speaking, but I know that people are listening. Right. So, I'm aware. But it's really cool. I like it. I would totally come back if you invited me.
Absolutely.
And it's been a real pleasure. I really mean it.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you.
And the microphones are really cool.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Really cool.
They do all the work. If you have really good mics, then you can, you don't have to talk too loud.
Yeah.
And it is it was a journey finding the right equipment, but then once you do, I thought about this podcast for a long, long time. I bet. Maybe a year and a half.
I bet.
I recorded a few episodes that then I was like, with really bad equipment, probably a year and a half ago, and got rid of it because
this is really good. Like, I'm not cringing hearing my voice. You know how I usually do, like on a normal, like it just sounds nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it feels good too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we touched on one of the things that I ask everybody is tell me 3 stories that have helped shape who you are. And we actually may have touched on them during the convo, but let's hit it head on. What are 2 or 3 stories that have helped shape who you are today?
Definitely the New York Fashion Week one. And I know we touched on that and everything, but I was such an underdog, and I really did not believe in myself at all. And then I, came out on top. I really put in the work, and I got it. I got something so out of my reach that seemed like only those people got it. I'm doing quotes with my fingers right now, those people. And then I became one of those people, but I don't want to be seen as one of those people. You know what I mean? I want everybody to know that everybody can get what they want. They just have to put in the hours, and they, be dedicated and be a little crazy.
Were there times when you made it where you felt tempted to make excuses, or to go towards kind of the self-destructive, kind of self-pitying type of realm that I think is human nature to go towards, but can work so against you? I
did, but this particular one, I knew this was like my go for broke moment. I knew, like, if I didn't get this, or if I didn't try it, like I didn't know how my life was going to go. I didn't want to know how my life was going to go. This was so important for me. And like the moment that, they read, they put up a list in school that is public, and you have to go and look. And I wouldn't go. And I was an RA, like a resident advisor, like all through college. Like I lived for free. I was like kind of the dorm mom, because I had good grades and stuff. And I made one of my students go and check. And, I didn't get a phone call at 8:30 in the morning. I'm supposed to. And I was like, oh my God, I pulled the covers up over my head. And I was like, I didn't get it.
To find out if you got the New York.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't go in. I was too chicken shit. I would not go into school. I couldn't do it. I couldn't face it if I didn't see my name on that list. It was too terrifying for me. And it was like my biggest moment of my life. And I couldn't handle it if it didn't come true. And so I wouldn't handle it that way now, but I was chicken shit at that moment. And I made one of my students go check it, and she snuck in there. And she, I didn't get a phone call at 8:30 or 8:35. And I was like, she's too scared to tell me I didn't get in. And I was like, I didn't get in. And then like 8:40, I get a phone call, and she's like, congratulations. And I was like, congratulations, what? I was like, I didn't even get it. And then
at 8 a.m., did you feel like you got it?
No. I was terrified. I was just like, what if this doesn't, what's going to happen? I was like paralyzed with fear.
Right.
To be honest, waiting for it.
And you said that you wouldn't handle it that way now.
No.
How would you handle it now?
I would go head in and be like, okay, I didn't get it. Look, try again next time. Like I'm a different person. Like I'm a better version of that person now. I think I'm just not afraid to fail. I failed a lot, like since that moment, that I'm almost comfortable with it. And I see it as necessary. So I would just go in and I would just check it, and I would just hold my head up and,
it is
do something different.
A friend of mine is selling their company right now, and it's not the storybook ending that they wanted. And we were chatting last night, and it was just, we were chatting about how, we have these narratives, and saying earlier on in life he would be much more controlled by the narrative other people would have. And the place that he's in now, it's his own narrative. He doesn't care.
Oh yeah.
And then before it would be like, did you? And we talked about like going to the gym, and I don't go to the gym very often, but it is like, you can go to the gym and leave, and that's like you understandably exhaust every muscle you can. That's the point. And maybe you fail of getting 250 pounds, up 10 times. And that's kind of the point, to push to your limits. And that is, breaking down your muscles for the point of breaking them down so they come back stronger. And yet when it comes to with entrepreneurial ventures, it is, maybe because they're so much more costly than going to the gym, but it can be the exact same way if that's the narrative in your mind that you yourself are seeking of, like, it broke me down, but I'm coming back stronger.
Yeah.
And failure, is just I remember thinking it's like this stain, and now feeling like it is, it's just part of it.
It's almost like a badge of honor now. It's almost like I listen to all these people. I listen to like Will Smith, who's also really great. Like, I know you're not a ton on Instagram, but you should follow him on Instagram, because he's like really inspiring. And he's like a completely different person than he was, which he was always cool in his 20s and stuff. But he's like really like a person that, like, I'm going to face my fear. I'm afraid of heights. I'm going to jump out of a plane. you know? And he always said about failure, like it's necessary. And I was so scared to fail when I was younger, terrified of the humiliation, terrified. Like that was number one. It wasn't even, if I failed like by myself, maybe it wouldn't even be that bad, but I didn't want anyone else to know. I was just like, oh my God, that was the worst thing in the world. And now it's like, you know, going back to the very beginning when I said, when you asked me what my time for the marathon, which I might not make. Okay. So nobody hold me to that. Okay. But I'm still.
I'm holding you to it.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm going to do it then. Okay. But I'm brave enough to say that now, you know, and it's a challenging time and people are going to be like, yeah, right. You can't do it, which maybe I can't, but maybe I can, you know, why not? That's what I say.
Right. It's for you.
Yeah.
It's not for anyone else anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And early on in my career, I just needed external validation. And when you put that in someone else's hands, then, you know, you really live in this provisional existence where they can take it away.
Yeah.
Rather than, and it's your existence is provided for you, rather than you being able to just care about your own validation, your own kind of value judgment on what something is. And then you just get rid of value judging altogether because it's like, or at least I have, because things that you think are good, I am so bad at actually value judging whether something is good or bad. Something that could seemingly be bad ends up being the most amazing thing in the world. I'll go below the line here and tell you that my wife and I, we thought we were going to have a boy. And just thought, oh, intuition. It's like, no, I feel like it's going to be a boy. And we had the gender reveal. And I don't know why we thought it was a boy. I think it's just, we looked around at our nephews and I'm one of 4 boys. And so maybe it was just
There's
like,
a lot of guys.
But and then we had a gender reveal and I remember feeling like, oh, okay, cool. We're having a girl. But this is not what this is a narrative violation of what I had in my head of what was going to happen. And I was so attached to, this is a dumb example, but I was so attached to
we thought we were going to have a boy too.
Yeah.
And we were excited.
Not only thinking we were going to have a boy, but also thinking like, oh, my intuition on this stuff is good. And Cheney had these dreams of a boy. Yeah. And that's just a perfect one of the billion examples where I would have wanted one thing now with a baby girl. I wouldn't want 10 boys for the amazing baby girl that I like. It just could not imagine anything but what the universe has given us. And it is that's just one example that comes to mind of something that maybe I would have pinned a different version, but I'm so glad I was so wrong.
Yeah.
And like every ounce of me is so glad I was so wrong. That you just get to, at least I've gotten to the point where I just don't value judge at all or try to predetermine something that I think is going to be good or bad. Or
you're just open.
Anything. Yeah, open to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's this thing that I think about pretty often of how bad we are at value judging. You mentioned your story at the midpoint being one of the most formative experiences that got you into New York Fashion Week. And it's like, you probably wouldn't have pinned that low point a year and a half into grad school.
Or the high point even. I didn't. And then, I was in bed, like, I didn't even know I got in. So I've been wrong a lot. My husband says that about it. Because I always say, oh, I have a gut feeling, and then he said, you've had a lot of gut feelings that are wrong. And it's totally true. So that like kind of segues into my second story because I didn't mention the other one, also my nephew David, and I'm trying to turn it into a really positive experience, not only to honor him, absolutely, like to honor his life and to just be a better version of myself, definitely. And, and I'm running the marathon for him and everything,
you are?
Yeah. I mean, not like officially, like I'm not like in any charity or anything, but it's on his 1 year anniversary. I was like, I'm going to go for a run and I'm going to go for like a 5-mile run or whatever. And then it started raining and then it started pouring. And then and then I was running in this pouring rain. I was running over the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was like pouring on my face, and I felt like so strong. And then I came back, and I was like, holy shit, I just ran 11 miles, and then I was like, I'm going to run the marathon. And that's my second story, is that I rose up. I could have just let that experience kind of defeat me, but I'm using it. Another David Goggins thing is he uses like bad experiences as fuel to make his life better, and maybe even a little bit of, anger isn't the worst thing in the world. Sometimes it's better than sadness. There's more energy in anger than in sadness. So sometimes if you start out with anger, you can channel it into, something really positive.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And when you were running those 5 miles that became 11 miles, what was going through your head in that rain? And
I was just like, you're gonna be strong now. Now it's time. Now it's time to be strong and to, rise up and learn from this past year. And then my daughter's my third one. Just how Elle is your story that has shaped you, which I really understand. Elle is really a joy, and she's wonderful, and she's like Lee's best friend.
Yeah, your daughter Lee is so they're best friends, and they're so cute together.
Yeah, and Lee, that's my daughter. She becoming a mom. They're always watching you, and I want to be like a better version for her of myself, and in all ways, not just like, oh, I'm this successful like designer. I don't like, that's only like a very small part. I want to be kind. I want to be, good. I want to be a great role model for her, and a strong, That's why I also like was running like that too. I was like, I have another little responsibility now. Not a little responsibility, big responsibility that's watching me. She's always watching. The kids are always watching you.
Yeah.
And so I just want to be great for her. And she's just such a joy. I'm so grateful for every day of my life,
Yeah. It is such a mind-bending experience.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last question that I have for you, Kathryn, is, and it's something that we chatted a little bit about, but want to give it its due and the air cover that I think deserves, which is, what's something you think a lot about, but you rarely get a chance to talk about, or rarely choose to talk about, but something that is kind of below the line and beneath the surface for you?
It's a couple part answer to that, but we might have touched on it, but basically it's that I don't believe in luck. And then, I'm going to reference a Goggins thing. I feel like I should get paid for like
I know
his book.
Well,
I really should.
I seriously do think he's such an inspiring character.
He is. And he said the 40% rule. And he says that we are only using 40% of our capabilities. And for example, if I'm running and I quit, I poop out at 5 miles, I really could run another 60%, which is true, because I felt like that in my body. I could, but it would be painful. So a lot of people look up to founders, or and they see them in this really glorified way, which is so cool that you're doing below the line, because it's like the honest cut, and it's not that way. Basically anybody is capable of doing something that they think in their heart is amazing. They have to have courage, and they have to work really hard, and they have to have good self-talk and discipline.
And it can be any type of creation as well. It doesn't need to be
No, lots. I mean, God,
Company, it doesn't need to be.
Who would want to be a founder? No, I mean, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, right? No, but I mean, like anything like that. People have so many different aspirations, but they could actually do them, you know.
Right.
And people don't think.
Yeah. What do you when someone says, "No, I couldn't do it. I could never do that."
I have been told so many times that I can't do something, and I usually find that the people who tell me I can't do something are the people who are the most scared that I actually can. So I really am very cautious when people say I can't do something. And I think everybody should be cautious when someone says you can't do something. I never say anybody can't do anything because I don't know what people are capable of, to be completely honest. Like, I never rule someone out. I never count someone out because they could rise from the dead like an underdog, you know, like in Rocky, and like really come back, and, you know, you'll be so surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the greatest blessings of having founder friends is you really do see there is no pattern.
No.
Like there is no just like, this person had 3 generations of entrepreneurs. This person is an immigrant, did it for the first time, and did it by accident.
Maybe the pattern is like their grit.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's
40% they push.
Right. And maybe that. for anybody, not just an entrepreneur, but like just that like perseverance, that like determination.
Well, it's, early on you mentioned just that phase of going from thinking you're going to be good, buying clothes, thinking you're going to be good, and then making clothes and being like, holy shit, this is totally different.
Totally different.
It is everything that anyone goes into creation mode. You go from consumption mode. So easy to consume. That's half of what every creative person is doing, is making it really easy for you to buy it.
Right.
But when you create it, very few people are spending all of this time to make it really easy for you to create. And so you really do start from square one.
And you think it's easy, actually. And that's their job, to make it look easy. Yeah. And that's actually what I do now.
Right.
I make it look really easy. And so lots of people are like, oh, I can do it. She does. And you can, but you got to put in the work and the time too.
Oh, this podcast and the idea of just this small project, which is so small in comparison. It's been 2 years, tons of thrown away versions, and
hope I don't get thrown away.
No. Yeah. Just thrown away versions of it, and it started with the idea of the book that I've told you about, but it is one of the things that I am really trying to lean into with this is consistency with it. And that is like this magic word that I never understood how hard that was until you try to create and you see just how wildly inconsistent things can become.
Right.
I make music and it's just so terribly all over the place. Yeah. So hard.
You do? You make music?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's terrible. But it is just consistently putting myself into, cool. I've dabbled and continue to dabble with stand-up comedy because it's just, okay, all of these, did you know that?
I feel like Jeannie mentioned it a really long time ago, but I forgot about it.
Yeah. So it is.
Carl and I would go watch you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, it's, this whole episode is a plug for that. No, I bring it up because it is going from that consumption to creation.
Right.
Is you get used to that pattern of it being so hard. But yeah, when you're just getting started, it's so hard that you tell yourself after dipping your toe so lightly, oh, I can't do that.
Right.
I was with the founder last week a person that wants to become a founder.
Okay.
So impressive. This person is so impressive. Has done all of these things, has gotten right to the front row.
Okay.
But has stopped herself from jumping in, and we were chatting about it, and she's like, I know I have friends that do it, and I feel a calling towards it, but it's not time yet.
Okay.
And yeah,
that's a shame.
Yeah, what advice would you give to someone that feels like it's not that uses that type of phrasing of it's not time yet?
I don't know his name, but he's the founder of Chobani. And he said, I follow him on Instagram, but I forgot his name. But he one thing that helped me when I first started, I was in my 20s, he said, you don't need to know how to swim. You just jump in and you learn the swimming from there. I remember when I started my business, I literally had a studio, and I sat down and I was so excited, and I had my desk, I had my computer, and I had everything. And I sat down and I was like, oh my God, I have nothing to do because I have no clients, and I didn't have anyone. And then I started putting up inspiration, and then that led to designing, and that led to finding out contacts, and then that led to getting in stores. And, you just start. You don't wait there's no perfect time. You just do.
Yeah, this entrepreneur in Cape Town, South Africa, after I graduated and moved there, maybe 2 months in, we were getting coffee, and he said something so profound that has stuck with me ever since. He said, take both feet off the ledge and Providence will catch you. Yeah. And I think about that phrase all the time. I don't mention it, come to think of it, but I think about that phrase pretty often of just jump and Providence catches you. And
that's a good one.
I think about it often, and it empowers so many decisions just to do it, and right. Providence catches you, and you see that pattern start to unfold in your own creative path, and then you think, you go through the moments where you're like, why did I ever do this? And then Providence catches you again. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Well, maybe we'll put that. Maybe I'll get back on Instagram and I'll put that out there.
You should.
No,
you should. I think that'll be your first post.
I don't know if I'm loving life without social media, but well, that's not true. Twitter has been it's been fun to connect with people about this, around this podcast on Twitter, but maybe Instagram. Maybe we'll get on there.
I like Instagram.
Well, K-Mac, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this was a blast, and learned a lot about you in the below the line version. That we've known each other for many years, and I haven't heard really so much. I haven't heard any of that really.
No, probably not.
So thank you so much for
taking
the time to walk us all through it.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, Kathryn. Hey, friends and listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to hear more of these types of conversations, go over to your favorite podcast app and hit subscribe, or leave us a review. Good or bad, we love hearing from people that appreciate this type of conversation and want more of it. You can also follow us on Twitter at @GoBelowTheLine, as well as see in our Twitter bio our email address for you to shoot us a note on any suggestions of guests or topics that we should cover. We read every single one, so thank you for those that have already sent those in. That's it for us today. We will see you next time on Below the Line.
Below the Line with James Bashara is brought to you by Straight Up Podcasts.